shelter in the shadows from the creatures of the night. Tentacles that slither just out of sight. Dark curses conjuring an endless dreadful blight. Beware the evil that goes bump in the night, lest you give yourself a fright with Mystic Moon tonight.
Hi, kids.
Hello.
I love it. You hear that intro every time. Howl and the laugh. Where it's at.
I'm a big fan of that. That was his
Times.
charge. Hi, gang. Guess what? It's a gruesome night on Mystic Moon Cafe.
Hungry?
Yes, it is.
It's a very chipper topic.
What are we talking about, Jake?
We're talking about cannibals.
Good, wholesome family time, right?
Well, I mean, meat's meat. Man's got to eat.
True.
Kind
True.
of rhymes.
Mhm.
Yeah. I got that from Motel Hell or something like that from back in the day. You know...
Yeah.
I guess we can say, it's not for the faint of heart.
Or
Or
as
stomach.
they say today, trigger warnings in effect.
Trigger warning, yeah. Trigger warning, flesh-eating, living humans. Mine's especially gross.
All right. I guess
Well, let's kick off.
Jumping.
Merle is going to tell us about some BC cannibals because, Canada does start with C-A-N. I went to public school. C-A-N, like cannibals.
it's basically the same.
It's basically the same thing.
Basically.
Yeah. So with that, Merle, tell us about some flesh eaters.
Sounds good. I'm going to be reading this one because it is lengthy. There's a lot of names, a lot of history on this one. So let's see if my public school reading works out. So it's called The American Cannibal Who Once Called Kelowna, Where the Ogopogo Lives, Home. I knew Jake would like this one for that. So, an American miner who resorted to eating his partner in the BC wilderness is remembered. This is an article about the guy who did this. The story involves two American miners, William Owens and Joseph Williamson, who headed off to Kamloops to find silver in the southern interior wilderness during the spring and summer of 1884. The snow was melting and the streams were rivers, and they couldn't get across the streams as easy as they wanted. Meanwhile, they were running out of food. So here's where it turns right. Williamson died in the harsh conditions, and Owens was left with no food, starving. Owens then cut off his partner's flesh, and he kept pieces in his wallet. He wandered for weeks before stumbling upon his eventual rescuers. He should not have been rescued, but as fate would have it, they were sorry. He wasn't. There was. It was the CPR railway that found him stumbling around the wilderness. He was confused. He was lacking the food nutrients because I guess his wallet of flesh was all gone. The man earned the nickname Man-Eater, and he lived basically in a hole in the ground. Nobody knew his name. He forgot his name. And when he died, where am I reading? Oh, I screwed my story up, guys.
Oh man, you want to do over?
It was a good one. Basically, he couldn't remember where his partner that he cut up was buried because he buried him after cutting the flesh. And to this day, that body is still unmarked and missing. Um, he is laid to rest, actually, the cannibal himself, in Kelowna, and Jake can go visit him in the summertime.
I have questions.
Yep.
So the flesh eating just happened in Canada, but the flesh eater and the victim also, would he be a victim if he was already dead?
Technically, I guess your survival of the fittest. He wasn't murdered.
So we have two Amerikanskis and Canadianski.
Yep.
So the flesh eating just happened in Canada, but they were Americans.
They came up. Yep. They came up from the Midwest. And
Did they come from Wisconsin? I'm just saying, it's my home state. We have a tendency to produce cannibals.
it didn't say. It just said 2 American miners.
So I have
Came up from the
thoughts.
Midwest.
I have
Yep.
thoughts. Number one, Wendigo. Because remember, cold, harsh winters,
Yep.
eating flesh.
And he's stumbling
forgetting
around,
his name.
stumbling around confused.
Mm-hmm.
Couldn't remember where the body was, where it was buried.
Well, I mean, if it's winter and there's lots of snow,
It was spring. It was thawing. There was still snow. Yeah.
So, I mean, but in that neck of the woods, April, you're still getting a lot of snow.
Yes. Yeah. Sometimes those places have snow till
And
mid to
if
late
you're not,
May.
if you're not familiar and you're like, oh, I put the body by the big boulder where the river bends, I'm like, there's a whole lot of river bends up in that neck of the woods. So I'm not going to fault him for forgetting where the body is, especially, the bear wakes up, needs a little marrow. The wolves, there's like, it happens. But my next question is, what compels you to put, I guess, would it be thinly sliced flesh into
what I
a
was
wallet?
Or,
Yeah.
or are they calling some kind of a more substantial pouch a wallet here?
Yeah. Because I'm thinking you need like butt cheek chunks to get through the winter. That's not going to go into.
Rump
I don't
roast.
have my wallet here. My wallet's like that thick. Like butt cheek ain't gonna fit in that. Now, maybe a nice piece of back bacon under the shoulder,
Back
like where
strap.
one would get, nice tender flesh there that would become back rolls. I could see that.
And just a connection while I thought about it, because I didn't think about this guy till now. There was another cannibal that made his way up here looking for minerals like gold and silver.
And
the
femur.
The Kentucky cannibal Boone Helm.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yep, it's alleged. It's a gray area where he sawed off the legs of these dead people that he killed to bring through the Canadian winter. If it was in and around the northern tip of the U.S. or in Canada, but he carried legs and thighs around with him for some time and would cut it off as he would go. See, that's smarter than wallet.
I mean, thighs have some weight. I mean, that's a muscly. So, did he have like a little? What do you call them?
Satchel?
The little. No, what do you call it? Like in the old West days, you have the covered wagon.
Saddlebag?
Covered
Wagon.
wagon. Do you have like a covered wagon with like a trunk of meat, human
No,
meat?
he was walking around like John Wayne.
So he's just strapping a leg on his back.
But he also had a person he was walking with. So this is the other part of the story, and I need to fact check myself. But one of the
That's
other
okay. We'll go with urban legend. It's fine.
Okay, is the person he kept hacking up was alive for a while and would be walking with him, so the meat stayed fresh.
Not for much longer. Oh, this guy, this person was just like hack off a chunk.
Google Boone Helm. Yes.
No.
He was from Kentucky, went to Missouri, through to California, killing people all his way up. Lie, cheat, steal. The Canadians let him go. He got out of prison.
Did he go back to the USA?
He was he was sent down to the U.S. by the law, and he was hanged.
Oh.
Do not pass go. Do not collect your $200
He would be a good podcast.
or your pound of flesh.
Yeah.
Woo! There you go, Mike.
And so there's this town called Quesnel Forks in the Caribou. It's close to Barkerville, which we've mentioned before. He gunned down people and stole their gold in Quesnel Forks, up and around Quesnel Forks. And the legend has it that bag of gold is still hidden in the bush. I was up there exploring, and I actually went to the grave of one of his murdered victims.
We did.
No, that was we did not go to Quesnel Forks. This was when different area. Yeah.
Okay, different area. So yeah. I went to the grave of a different guy that got murdered.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
We did a spirit box session. We didn't get anything.
Nothing useless. No. Too many cannibals up here. But do you think in those old days, do you think that was more of a common practice than talked about, especially in the winters and that?
I think in the winters like that, I would bet it was actually a little more common than the taboo it is now. It wasn't accepted, but it happened.
I'd agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that was my story on my guy. I didn't find very many articles on them. This was actually in a Canadian newspaper.
So what year was this about?
The exact year was 1884.
Okay, so back in the day.
And he's buried in Revelstoke, not Kelowna, but he lived in Kelowna for quite some time. Ogopogo.
One of my favorite lake monsters.
Maybe the Ogopogo possessed him. And
Perhaps.
that was when he got the taste for flesh.
I'm not following that. I'm not doing that.
So when we go to Kelowna this summer, we might have to bait someone and throw them over. See what we get. Because, I got to get the shot.
Got to get the shot.
Got to get the shot.
Absolutely.
Got to get
You
the
got to
shot.
slice them so they bleed and it becomes like chum.
It's just going to be a belly hook job. Just, and then
Yep.
get the blood to go.
Yep.
And intestines too.
Oh, I mean, if they come out, I actually just, okay, on the subject, I wanted to tell you about this movie. Non sequitur alert, people. I watched this movie called Unwelcome. And it's about a British couple who survive a hooligan attack. And they move to Ireland because dude's auntie dies and he inherits her house. Well, it turns out there's a door to the wee folk, namely red caps.
Oh dear.
And you can if you know red caps, you know how the rest of it goes. Anyway,
Yep.
It was a fun movie. It was really about hi Sandy, hi Heather. It is very much Irish hillbillies.
Gone amok.
Yeah. Which is weird to say Irish hillbillies because I don't, but they were in a hilly region. Well, not really, but they weren't by Dublin. They were out in the
Oh Lord.
Yeah. Anyway, back to regularly scheduled programming. Hey, Wendy.
Hey, Jake.
Wendy's turn.
Wendy has a multimedia experience for us.
I do. It's not very well done, but it is done. So there.
Okay, so I will share, we'll play,
Okay.
and then we'll
We will discuss.
talk about, we will discuss. Will discuss.
Well, this covers Mark Sappington, the Kansas City vampire of Kansas City. I forget how they titled him exactly.
Well, let's let this puppy roll and learn about this bloodsucker.
Let's do.
Here we go.
Mark Vincent Sappington, the Kansas City Vampire. Mark Sappington, born February 9th, 1978, was an unassuming young African-American man. He would take walks down the side streets of Kansas City, Kansas without getting a second glance or from others walking by or driving by. But beyond this amiable facade, Mark was anything but harmless. In March 2001, Mark was having heated debates with the voices in his head. What about him? What about her? You see, Mark was trying to appease and quell the voices he had in his head, auditory hallucinations that demanded that he must harvest human blood and flesh for them if he wanted to ever get them to quiet and leave him alone. If he didn't, well, they would kill him, apparently, as the story goes. This quiet, church-going 21-year-old actually feared for his life, said one interviewing officer. Sappington's friendly... Wait a minute. Sappington finally gave in to the voices in his head. He ended up killing 4 people, 2 in a single day. The killings were horrific. Mark had attempted to suck the blood out of his victims, both of which were supposedly his friends. This act is what gave him the name Kansas City Vampire. Mark also carved up a 16-year-old body into bite-sized morsels, which he then began to eat while lounging in his mother's basement. Sappington is not your stereotypical serial killer, cannibal. He was young and a person of color, as were his alleged victims. He started suddenly and showed no signs of sexual deviance. He appeared to be intelligent and charming individual. He was raised by a single mother in a rapidly declining neighborhood in Kansas City, Kansas. Unfortunately, he developed a taste for PCP and danks, street slang for cigarettes soaked in embalming fluid, then dried and smoked. This all probably helped develop paranoid behavioral issues, maybe even psychosis. None of this ever resulted in crimes or assault on people until March 16th, 2001. Mark fell in with a gangster wannabe who somehow got his hands on an assault rifle, and the two of them decided to hold up some random person but not actually shoot anybody. David Marshak didn't put up a struggle, but Sappington shot him up anyway. He never could say why, but he killed Marshak deader than dead. Armando Guyton, Mark's partner in crime, fled to Texas, but was later caught. He never did give up the name of Sappington until later on. When interrogated, Sappington didn't utter a word about his killing spree, but even when he did start talking, he never gave the voices any God or Satan type of attributions. Also, also, as bullying and controlling as the voices were, Mark chose his own victims, and it was simply a matter of chance. The first victim attributed to vampiric Sappington and his voices was Terry Green, a longtime friend of Mark's. This was April 1st, 2001. The voices told Sappington to lure Green into his mother's home and kill Green with a hunting knife. It happened with so much violence that all the walls of the basement were covered in splatter and gore. The voices told Mark to lap up the blood, but something spooked him, and the voices had him use his mother's car to dump the body in a club parking lot over in Kansas City, Missouri, that he frequented. Next was another friend, Michael Weaver. Sappington drank some of the blood, but got spooked again and ran off again, leaving Weaver's body in an alley 3 blocks from his house. Sappington was now officially a serial killer. On his way home, Sappington spotted Alton Freddie Brown, a teen who looked up to Sappington for most of his life. The voices approved of the now new target, so Sappington took Freddie to his house and killed him with a shotgun. Sappington went to work drinking the blood down and then chopping Freddie's body into bite-sized pieces and stuffing a big portion down his throat. He put the leftovers in a garbage bag and left it on the basement floor, deciding he needed an after-dinner walk. Sappington's mom followed the blood-soaked trail down to the basement when she arrived home after a long day at work. She immediately called the police. After a very short chase, the police picked him up. His robbery partner then gave up Sappington's name as the shooter in the robbery homicide, since Sappington was obviously a psycho. Sappington has since been committed to a state mental hospital for the rest of his life. The end.
I have questions.
Me too.
Ask them.
Okay. So it's
And I'm sorry, I do apologize. I wanted to get it out with the pictures, and it was pretty choppy, and I ran out of time.
that's okay.
Okay.
We're here to get the dish on the.
You just want the tea?
We just want the tea.
Okay, I got tea.
So it's obvious he had a mental break. He was
Yes.
I probably get the terms wrong, but he was a schizophrenic, or he had a break from reality.
Right. Now, where the video kind of cut out, I believe, it tells of his addiction to the LSD.
And the cigarettes with the embalming
Right.
fluid.
Why would you do that? What the hell? But
That was
I've
the thing.
never heard of that before.
me neither.
Danks
But I mean, it's
was
just
the
right
name of
across
it.
the river. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yes. And
Did he have was he a known person with mental health issues?
no,
was
no,
not.
not at all. He came off as just your everyday nice guy, actually.
So
Wow.
this was probably happening, but he could control it until a certain point.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. I'm still surprised he wasn't put to death. It being Missouri and all.
Well, he was tried on the Kansas side because that's where all of the
Okay.
killings occurred. And it was obviously a psychotic break. So, I mean,
Okay. So
he probably
insanity.
wishes,
Yeah.
right,
All the
yeah.
chemicals.
Possibly he wasn't fit for trial, but it didn't actually come out and say that.
Yeah. So Sandy was saying, why not death penalty? Obviously, mental issues.
Does Kansas still have the death penalty? This was 2000.
I gotta say, I
2000.
never hear about any of the square states getting rid of the death penalty,
I know.
other than like Colorado.
True.
So it's
But I don't
I
don't know.
Yeah, and we might have to look into that, but hearing this stuff, I mean, he's obviously insane.
Yes, completely. Bat poop crazy.
Yeah, I mean, if someone's like doing a drug binge and they go, I'm like, kill him. But well, he was doing drugs too.
Right. Yes, exactly. Which made the psychosis even worse. or brought it to the surface.
Yeah.
I'm trying to see if Kansas City or Kansas has the death penalty. I'm
Okay.
researching.
Ooh, researching.
Ooh, what? Research.
No,
On
I
the
did a
go.
bunch, but that bit was a little hazy.
I bet Kansas has the death penalty.
I bet Missouri does.
Oh yeah, totally.
Oh
Missouri.
yeah. We are the reddest of the red.
The death penalty was reinstated in 1994.
Kansas got rid of it?
Ooh,
Yeah.
Oh wow.
interesting.
Yeah, I mean, with the story, when we get to my case, which I think I'm next, that is a weird one because it is split. So with the crimes that happened, some of the folks fell under the death penalty rules, and then others were commuted because they got rid of the government got rid of the death penalty. So it straddled it. But, Illinois, I guess, well, let's finish up with Sappington. So, you don't really hear about people of color being serial killers. I mean, we do have the Atlanta child killings, which is probably the most notorious in recent memory. And wow, that was like 40 years ago, over 40 years ago.
Well, that was 25 or 30 years ago for this, so
Yeah, I never heard about this.
they're
There
good
was,
at covering things up.
Samuel Little.
Oh, I remember him. Yeah. He died in prison.
Yeah.
Okay.
He was notorious. He killed like 40
Mark
people.
is still alive.
Oh,
Mark
is
is
he?
still alive, and yeah,
Which mental hospital is he in?
it did not list it.
Okay.
So I decided to let it go and not spread it, because yeah.
I got
Maybe
all
just
the
didn't wanna
details
know.
on everyone.
Exactly, yeah.
I mean, we don't often do true crime.
No,
I
we
think
do
this is
not.
like the first true crime one we're doing.
Yes, it's not a comfortable subject for me, so I avoid these things.
Yeah, I'm more comfortable with
Don't-
like
I
true
don't wanna
crime.
know. Yeah.
I'm more comfortable with true crime before World War II than true crime after World War II.
There you go. I'm thinking,
Right.
crikey, born in 79, I think.
Oh, hot damn, he was a young man.
Yes,
young.
yes, he was.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I would have been running the streets about that time or getting ready to. But no killing sprees. And I never heard of a dank in my life. So,
Yeah, I've never heard of that drug before.
No.
Ever.
but then again, why would you snort bath salts too? So,
Well, I mean, I've seen some like truly outrageous Florida man bath salts type thing, like people eating faces on bath salts. I might have to do something with that one. So, okay. A quick question
yay.
here, because you got two ghost hunters on the line. Oh, Wendy, you ghost hunt too. Any
do,
ghosts associated with this? Any hauntings associated with
I
any of
did
this?
not see any mention of that whatsoever, actually. So,
Yeah.
but when I tried to find where the mother's house was,
Mm-hmm.
they disappeared it.
Okay.
But I would imagine some really talented individuals could search the land records over in Wyandotte County, Kansas City, Kansas,
Okay.
and figure it
Listen
out
there.
Yeah.
Yep.
with the name.
I was going to say, in the cases of most serial killers where their home is used in the act of killing, they get rid of the house. They bulldoze it.
And I'm thinking that might have happened there too. I know that happened with another Kansas City serial killer on the Missouri side, but although there were allegations of human consumption, there was no actual proof on it. So, Oh, and that got hushed up because of the Final Four tournament, the basketball thing,
Okay.
because Kansas City is big for that, or was. I'm not sure anymore. But anyway, that's a whole nother one that I didn't go down because I was going to save Bob Berdella for another time,
Okay.
but he is dead.
Okay. Well, shall we?
Did you have any more questions? I'm sorry.
No, that's good.
I'm
I
just
mean,
processing the whole vampire thing. It's so
yeah,
weird.
yeah. I've heard
Right,
of
the
like,
voices in your head.
yeah, and I get the blood sucking if you think you're a vampire, but not the flesh eating part of it. But
Ew, it's just all ew.
well, we're about to get really ooh with my next.
Ewer
With the
than
next,
ew.
it's gonna be real ooh.
Okay.
So let me share the screen and we'll just get into it.
You can jump right in.
I was surprised because this one is from my second hometown of Chicago, Illinois, and I had never heard of this one. Never. So let me share the screen and we'll get into it. And I'll just use this article from the Chicago Tribune, but I'll fill in a lot of it because it's a good timeline.
Jake, is this the Seven Brides for Seven Brothers or something like that?
Not quite.
Not quite. Okay.
I'll do the
okay.
window. I'll do the window because I'm going to jump around a little bit between things here.
Okay.
But here we go.
right.
I am presenting my cannibals of choice are the Ripper Crew, who terrorized the Chicago area from May 1981 through November 1982. And these four monsters essentially killed at least 18 women.
Wow.
And did a drive-by and killed a single man. Now, the thing with the Ripper Crew to know is the mastermind is this POS, Robin Gecht. He was somewhat of a cult leader. At least these three individuals viewed him that way. And then we have Andrew, I hope I don't mispronounce the name here, it's Greek, Kokorolice, his brother Thomas Kokorolice, and this is Edward Spreitzer. And what happened is we have to step back to May 1981. And this kind of came up out of the blue. There was a lady, Linda Sutton, as you see here. And she was a prostitute. She was working in Wrigley Field. So Wrigleyville is the name of the area, Wrigley Field for the Chicago Cubs. At the time, it was a bit seedy, I guess would be the simple way to say it, big tourist place. So it wasn't uncommon for a car to drive up and she would get into it. But she was the very first victim of this crew. And what happened was, I guess the MO I should probably describe right away. With the victims of the Ripper Crew, they always lost their left breast. It was cut off while they were alive.
Oh.
And then for their other breast, it was sliced or mutilated. But the other things that were consistent is the victims were always raped and stabbed, and something else was done to them. So with the crew, sometimes the victims were shot, sometimes they were beaten and hacked up with an axe, sometimes they were strangled. So out of all of the killings of the 18 women, 11 of them were prostitutes and were unnamed. They either couldn't identify them or their bodies were in such bad shape that they couldn't be identified.
Oh, God.
So Linda was the first to die, and it took a year between her death and the next victim. But the MO is always the same, with the left breast missing and either being stabbed or some other mutilation of the other breast was involved with it. So her being a prostitute, there wasn't a deep dive into it. But there was a second victim that came out early in the year in 1982. Her name, Cynthia Jackson, I could be wrong on the last name. She got away. She survived. But she couldn't give enough information for the police to do any research into it, to follow up on it. But it was very similar. She reported, and this is an MO. So there were 3 survivors for these attacks. Okay, over the years. And in the case of Cynthia, who was a young prostitute as well, she explained in her case, she was in a van and the killers had her cut her own breast off.
Oh.
And
Dear
then
God.
they stabbed her and they beat her and they raped her and they threw her out of a van. I don't know if the police didn't take it seriously. Like, if you look at the Chicago Tribune report, it's very interesting for a lot of the prostitutes that lived. They just say, like, a North Side woman, a West Side woman. They don't actually name them. I have the names. The names aren't anything to hide. But the Tribune in their reporting disregards their names. But things started to change rapidly when Lori died. And Lori was in the suburbs. So when I talk about the Chicago area, really, it was the Chicago area. Not all these women who were murdered were from the city. It's very much tied to the van that the killers were driving, which was described as a reddish-orange Dodge van. If you hear the howling, that's the coyotes. I got my window open.
Wow.
Oh, okay. I thought it might be one of these cats here.
No, it's the coyotes.
Oh, my word.
So in the case now, the thing is, and I'm going to spoil this a little bit, when it came to the sentences that were doled out to the 4 killers, and we'll get to the case of the mastermind, who's Robin Gecht. They were arrested for the non-prostitutes, and they were sentenced for the non-prostitutes. In the case of Lori, she was an administrative assistant that worked at a real estate company who was just walking to work. And the van came up. They offered a ride. She declined. 2 of them got out, grabbed her, and dragged her into the van and murdered her. Next up is Schwemak. Now, just so you know, there is a period where every 2 weeks, like clockwork, the Ripper crew was taking someone and killing them. So in this case, unfortunately, with Schwemak, who was in a suburb, got into a fight with her brother, got out of the car to walk home, and she was picked up by the Ripper crew, thrown into the van, and murdered. Now, a lot of times, the bodies, and here's the interesting thing, the killing MO was always the same. Where the bodies were dumped was always different. Some of the ladies were dumped at hotels, some were under bridges, some were in rivers. So there was no consistency where the bodies were dumped. And when we get to the case of Rose Davis, that's like a big old exclamation point for the city. So she was discovered later. Here's another survivor, 23-year-old, another prostitute. She survived, also gave some evidence. Now, when we get to October, there was a prostitute that the police took seriously. And that is the person, her name is Beverly Jackson or Johnson. 18-year-old prostitute. She was the one that cracked the case. Now, there were leads into who the killers were. Some of the killers by now had already been questioned, but there wasn't enough evidence to link them because, and I'm going to get gory here, people. I'm going to get really gory here. The victims were sexually assaulted, and as part of that, semen was left behind. So if we had DNA evidence, and with all the cameras we have, this case would have been solved lickety-split. But it's 1982, and this wasn't really the case. It wasn't until like the 90s that DNA evidence was really starting to be used. Yeah. So this 23-year-old lady that you see here, she survived the attack and also described the van, but still the police didn't do much about it. We get to 82 with Sandra Delaware, 18-year-old, murdered. We get to here Rose Beck Davis. This is probably the most brutal kill. Rose apparently was a very strong-willed woman, we'll put it that way, and it was obvious she put up a fight. And when they found her body, and this is the one that was dumped right north of downtown Chicago. When you hear about the Magnificent Mile, where all the fancy shops are, that's where they dumped her body by her car. And they took the end of an axe and bashed her head in. That her body was the most brutal of all of them. Again, the breast was missing. And when I get to the killers and the trials, I'll go into some of the details about what they were doing, because these Ripper crew, named after Jack the Ripper, there were some rituals that took place. I think that's kind of hyperbolized and everything. The other oddball part of it is when you see about Rafael Tirado, and there was another gentleman by the last name of Rosario. They don't say here. They were both drug dealers. They were at a payphone in Chicago when Robin Gecht and Edward Spreitzer were driving around, because let me tell you, they would just go on driving journeys in this van to find victims. Like I said, every 2 weeks, they just got in a van and drove around the city and the suburbs trying to find someone. And I don't know what the link is, but Robin Gecht had Edward stop. They go to the back, they get guns. Usually the crew doesn't use guns. They did shoot one victim in the face to kill her, like one of the very first victims. And they mowed these two guys down. So Rafael died, Rosario survived, but they did a drive-by, essentially, for these folks. And it's here in October 6th of 1982. The 18-year-old prostitute, her name was Beverly Jackson or Beverly Johnson. I can't remember the last name specifically, but she survived. And the way that she detailed it was the van drove up, the men pointed a gun at her, so she got in. Then they pumped her full of pills. And the last thing she remembers is waking up in Humboldt Park along some tracks. Humboldt Park is kind of northwest of downtown Chicago. At the time, it would have been a little more industrial than it is today. Today, it's pretty much all residential. And she told the police. And at this time, they were bringing in some of the Ripper crew as suspects in these slashing killings, as they were calling it. And they showed her a picture of Robin Gecht. And she's like, that's the one that made me eat the pills and started stabbing me. So that's when the arrest warrant went out for him. They did arrest some of the different, this is Robin Gecht at the time. They got Thomas Kokorolitis and he admitted to crimes, and Edward Spreitzer, they pulled over his car. Or the van. It was Edward's car, van, and brought him in. And he also confessed to crime. So it's over at this point. So let's just talk about the killing. So what had happened is inside the van, there was a fake wall. And in the wall, there were power tools and other things to hold down victims. So essentially, even though you'll hear about the house and its satanic chapel, most of the killings actually happened in this van. They would kill the ladies and dump them. So let's talk about some of the rituals. So Robin Gecht, you might recognize his name. You know why? He worked for John Wayne Gacy at his construction company. And John Wayne Gacy talked about having an apprentice.
Oh boy.
Wow.
So they
my.
never really connected it, but Robin worked for John Wayne Gacy for a couple of years, and they think he might have learned to do the craft. I gotta say, nowadays, they would have been caught right away. But at the time, you could get away with it because essentially, as you're fleeing a war, movement is life. So in this case, movement is a way to get out of being caught. So with all of the confessions coming in, Thomas admitted to being involved in 4 of the killings. Edward Spritzer admitted to being part of 7 of the killings. Andrew was a sick F-wad, and he admitted to being part of all of the killings. But the thing is, no one ever pointed to Robin, who was a bit of the mastermind, and he had this kind of cult-like figure with these other 3 guys. When they went to his house, which is now gone. It used to be a nice little bungalow. It got torn down. Fence Arbor Vita is up. It doesn't exist anymore. They went into the attic. So let me see if I can show you the house here. Here's the van for the trial of Robin Gecht. And we're taking a look inside the van. There's Robin Gecht when he was arrested. Schumach's family. That's Rose Davis, her body. Her car, they found the body near there. There's Lori, who was working at the real estate firm. But here's the house. And apparently the satanic ritual happened up here. But as we found out about from the story, as it was described mainly by Edward and by Tom Korkalitis, if they had brought a victim home, because Robin was married and had young children, and I'll get to David Gecht in a minute, the women were bound and gagged when, they cut her left breast off. They used a garrote, piano wire, and twisted to remove it. The group of men, this is getting gross, people. This is going to be very gross here.
Trigger warnings.
Trigger warning.
Hit explicit here.
Explicit. They would essentially jack off on it, slice it up, and eat it as some kind of sacrament. So Robin was saying he had a satanic Bible. There was no satanic Bible. He was just making the shit up. Then they would stab the women, and then with the other breast that was sliced up, they would essentially hump it. And then, but there couldn't have been that many women killed there because Robin had a wife who was abused, and she admitted that Robin had cut her boobs before, and she never reported it. They found
Probably
a box
afraid
with
to?
They found a box with 15 breasts in it.
Oh my God.
Damn.
Now, when the trial happened, I'm just going through to get to some of the last picks. There's some of the victims. So with the trials, we'll just do Robin first. Robin's first trial was a mistrial, and they had to retry him. And this is Andrew. He's the one that admitted to killing all 18 women, and he did so zealously. So with Andrew, he was sentenced to death by lethal injection, and he was the last person executed in Illinois.
Okay.
His brother, Tom, did a plea deal. He had to be retried. There was a technicality with how evidence was collected for him. He got a retrial. He took a plea offer to get 70 years, and he was released in 2019. He now lives in West Central Illinois, kind of like a halfway home. His brother Thomas has an IQ of 75. It was pretty clear he's the older of the two brothers, but being mentally disabled, it was pretty much obvious he just did whatever the rest of them wanted him to do. But, he admitted to killing lots of people, a lot of the women. He was executed in 1999, August 1999. He was the last person to be executed in Illinois before Governor Ryan commuted all the sentences. So Edward Spreitzer is still serving in prison. This is Edward Spreitzer. He confessed to 7 murders. So remember, there's only about 7 women who are actually named here. We have the 11 who are unnamed prostitutes. This is Thomas, who he's the one that was released in West Central Illinois, and then that's Robin Gecht. Now, in the case of Robin Gecht, no one could ever prove he actually murdered anyone. So the one lady, Beverly, who survived and identified him, well, he didn't kill her, so he doesn't qualify for the death penalty. He was arrested on attempted murder, rape, and kidnapping, and was given a 120-year sentence. And so if he's alive, he'll be like 83 when he gets out. That's the story of the Ripper crew. But it is true when you hear about the satanic cult, necrophiliac, cannibalistic serial killers in Chicago. It had happened, and I was so surprised. I had never heard of them until I started doing the research. There's a lot more to this. It's just for time. But yeah, here's the POSs that are alive. 2 of them will die in prison, most likely.
I sent a video to you, Jake. If we wanted to watch it, we can keep going on this one.
Oh no, that's about it. So any questions about these guys?
The video I sent you is Thomas saying to the news how everybody thinks he's a monster.
Oh yeah. But he says he didn't actually kill anyone, but he was in the van, like holding people down and taping. Let's be real.
He's just as guilty as any of them.
He's just as guilty as any of them. He may not have had the mental competence as some of the other ones, because he was really very much a low IQ person. He might have fallen into, I don't want to use the R word.
Well, he was highly suggestible.
Yeah, he was intellectually disabled.
There we go.
That's it. But still, he killing people is wrong. Come on.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, that's the story of the Ripper crew. It's very gruesome. Surprised I had never heard of it, having lived in Chicago as long as I did.
That's effed up. That's what that
totally effed up.
But
at least one of them died.
Yeah. And they all took part in eating? Like they were all...
Yeah. So as far as we know, when it came to the sacrament as part of it, everyone ate some of the flesh. And, this is a little tawdry, but Robin Gecht was asked by a journalist reporting on the story, like, why the ladies? And he just said his family comes from the men marrying ladies with endowments. And this is kind of how he's paying homage to that.
Okay, so he
know.
pulled something out of his butt.
Yeah, he just pulled something out of his butt. I'm just like, what?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Anyway, so that was the gruesome tale of the Ripper crew.
Wow. Yeah, no, and it sucks that stuff like that actually happens. And it sucks that those guys are still in jail, meaning like they should just not be here anymore.
Yeah, they I mean, we could go into the reason why Illinois had to get rid of the death penalty. Spoiler alert, they were killing a lot of innocent people now that we had DNA evidence. So that's why.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a high number. Like with death row, it was like 1 in 5 of the inmates actually was not guilty of the crime.
Jeez.
Right. Yeah.
So I'm like, I get, but these people, they need to die. Like pick and choose. Just don't give clemency.
Yeah, they really were guilty. Like
They really were
red-handed.
guilty. Yeah. So it was Illinois was a lethal injection state before 1999. Actually, I think it was 2003 when they did away with it, but I might need a fact check on that one. But Andrew died in 1999 by lethal injection. I'm like, Robin, mastermind behind it all, never, like the 3 other ones never said he killed anyone. They could never prove Robin killed anyone. He picked victims and partook in it, but apparently didn't do the killing blow. I'm just like, still, kill him.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's guilt by association.
Yeah.
Period.
I mean, if you were like in a lot of states, if there's a bank robbery and you shoot a teller and kill them and you're the driver, they're going to kill you.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
Damn Illinois. Okay.
It blows my mind how like these people, like we were talking about Sam Little earlier as well. They have families. They go home to their families like nothing ever happened. It's all good. Just at work. And I just don't understand. I can't grasp how people can live a double life like that.
Yeah.
Like, wow. Yeah, that was my reflection on that.
Yeah. So Merle, you got a final tale for us this evening.
I do. It's more of an overview because I think the one I'm about to talk about would be its own podcast show in itself, like a full episode. It's about the Donner Party. I think we all know who the Donner Party is.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So
More American cannibals.
yeah, but they stayed in the United States for this one. Basically, it was a group of American pioneers who were going to migrate to California from the Midwest. It was traditionally called the Donner Reed Party because those are the 2 families that started the wagon train. Everything was great. Everyone was happy because they were going to take the less difficult at the time, it was all difficult back then, Oregon Trail. However, they decided to take a left when they should have just stayed right. And they went through something called the Hastings Cutoff. So Lansfield Hastings was a guy who was selling his new wagon route to people, or route, however, potato. That'll be quicker, better, easier, but it was absolutely the bipolar opposite of that. Like to the point where it was so steep in areas that they had to lock all the wagon wheels going up and down, down these mountains so they wouldn't lose all their stuff. People started dying of tuberculosis. They started dying of starvation on this pass. And they were stuck in the winter of 1846 to 1847 in the Sierra Nevada mountain range. They had no food. They had no water. They started to succumb to starvation, sickness, the cold, and all they could do was eat the dead to survive. At Donner's Pass, they have a whole memorial area where the camp, the first photo Jake put up,
Okay.
the Donner camp, where they stayed, they lived for that whole winter. And when the rescuers came up for them, they were absolutely shocked with what they saw, and the state of the people, and the state of the, what's the word I can use? The bodies that were basically cut up like deers, essentially.
Yeah.
And they had to eat each other until they were finally rescued. Like I said, I would love to cover that as a whole episode, talking about the Donner Pass and the whole drama there, because there's so many characters that come in and out, decision makings, fallouts between the Donner Reed party, whereas half the party made it because they took left when half the other ones took right. And the person who sold the Hastings Pass on the Donner party, he knew this wasn't a great way to go. He just wanted the money. He sent riders out to help guide them, and it was just a whole shady business, and nobody wanted to take that way. They all wanted to stick together, but they had a big
Weren't they
fallout.
supposed to go to Oregon?
Yeah. They're going to go to Oregon and California. Like there was.
Oh, okay. Because Sierra Nevada, that is California for sure, because you
Yeah.
don't have the Sierra Nevadas in Oregon.
Yeah, no, they took the other way.
The southern route.
Yeah.
Now, I got questions.
Yeah.
There's lots of wildlife in that neck of the woods. There's a lot of deer.
Mm-hmm.
And the streams don't necessarily freeze. So there's fish.
But not when you're in the pass like that. Not when you're
Okay.
way up in the mountains.
Okay. Well, you might still have deer, but...
True. But I think they lacked... Because I know that they sent people out on hunting expeditions, but they would die due to the
inclement weather.
But also, they had cattle. They had oxes.
Horses.
They had
Dogs.
horses, but they were robbed.
Mhm.
They were robbed at one of their stops where a tribe took, I think, most of their cattle and injured or killed most of their oxen. So that screwed them because they didn't have the money. They're basically in the pass, like leading up to the pass, no man's land.
Mm-hmm.
And that was, I think, like a death blow, like a foreshadowing death blow to them, because they were obviously eating the cows or trading the cows for other supplies in all the towns that they'd pass. And they're all gone. It was gone. And I think they lacked ammo. But again, with it being so cold out there, they couldn't handle they weren't prepared for the winter.
That's weird, because if they're coming from the Midwest, like, Midwest winters are no joke. I mean, don't have mountains.
Mm-hmm. Right.
You get
That's a whole
bitter
other
cold. Yeah.
level. Mm-hmm.
But they didn't leave around that time, and I don't think they're planning to be around.
That's true.
So the Hastings cutoff was that was the issue with the Hastings cutoff, was how high it was, whereas it wouldn't have been that high if they took the other way, and it would have been a lot quicker. The Hastings cutoff added 150 miles to their travel.
So were they trying to get to the same spot, or was one party fine with settling in California?
It was a joint party of going out west.
Okay.
Yeah. I believe I didn't go that far. I just read about the cannibal part, but no.
Mm-hmm.
From what I can recall is someone out to California and someone to Oregon.
Okay.
Maybe we need to do a seance and ask them what happened.
The North had technique.
It'll work.
Yes.
We'll go to the Sierra Nevadas.
Yep.
In the summer,
Yes.
in our cars.
Yes. Well, maybe the fall. It's awfully hot there.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll go in the fall or spring.
Okay. That works too.
Yeah, I want to be there in August.
Okay. Oh, for my birthday. Okay.
Okay.
All
Yep.
right.
Do you, Merle? You want me to show any of the other pictures?
No, it was basically just the Donners, the tin photo I sent you. There's a bunch of relics. There's like a Donner museum where there's a bunch of relics, and like those were
Okay.
found at the pass or the camp.
I know we have some like graves. Oh, sorry. That's a hot button issue. Okay.
So, why did you decide not to do the Canadian with the name of Merle, who was a cannibal?
Oh, the one I'd mentioned,
Mm-hmm.
or which? Oh, I couldn't find what I was looking for that.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, and I found
Cool.
the other Americans coming to Canada one, which I liked.
Yes. Those damn flesh eaters.
So yeah, Donner Pass, that one, there's so much detail, like I can't just say it. That would have been a whole show right there. But I'm so fascinated with it. Like I have a bunch of tabs open on my computer where I've just been reading and reading and reading about it, and I want to learn more and talk about it more. Yeah. Mine wasn't as cool as the Ripper one.
So I mean, the Ripper's got no ghosts associated with it. So Donner Party got any ghosts associated with it?
That would be, you know what, camping at the Donner Pass, where their camp was, could be interesting.
You know, we might have to get the portal out for that one. See what kind of spirits come through.
Yeah, and I have to bring the portal. We have a portal,
We do.
so we can use that.
Merle made one. He's handy.
Yeah, made portals, made REM pods. Wendy, what do you need? I can make it.
Woohoo!
But I
need
think
that synthesizer.
yes.
Mm-hmm.
I think doing an investigation in that area would be really interesting to see what would come up, because the amount of death, trauma, and grief that happened there, that has to be
Yeah.
imprinted on the land.
Mm-hmm.
If anything, like a residual haunting. And it would just be interesting to check out.
It definitely bears, researching and checking out for sure.
Totally. We'll have
Yeah.
to do a road trip. We'll
All
fly
right.
down to. Just wait. So, with Hastings Cutoff, is that in California or is that in Nevada?
That one was, I'll give you the exact location. Hold on. Unos momentos, por favor.
Oh. I would say,
Okie
un moment,
dokie.
s'il vous plaît.
Oui.
D'accord.
Doc.
D'accord.
I can't find it now. Of course.
Let me search.
We're searching. We're searching.
Searching.
It's in Nevada.
Okay.
See, that's another one. Is it Nevada or Nevada? I've heard it both ways.
I've heard Nevada and Nevada. And
Yes,
since
that too.
when I lived in the Midwest, there's a couple of pronunciations for Western states. In the Midwest, I would have said Nevada. But now that I live on the West Coast, I say Nevada because the actual natives say Nevada. The other one
Oh.
is I said Oregon for the longest time, but the Oregonians say Oregon.
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 Oregon. And then
Well,
as a Washingtonian now, I never say Washington State. It's Washington. The other Washington is DC.
Okay.
I never say Washington to refer to the capital. I say DC.
Do you say route or route?
What's that?
Route or route?
Route.
Okay.
Or Route.
Route, that's
Get your
plants in the ground.
kicks on Route 66.
Route 66, Route 60. Yeah. And what's it? I say roof, not roof.
Good.
I
Wendy,
say
I think you're a
creek-
rougher.
Creek, not crick.
Roof or roof?
What's on the top of the
It,
house?
right, yeah. I have probably used both, depending on the company I was with. I have I have worked around a lot of travelers from different states and what have you,
Mm-hmm.
and boy, that can get wild trying to decipher what's what.
Yeah. And the big thing I always think is funny, it's kind of a giveaway, like where you're from is, well, there's a few of them, but when you're driving on the road and you get to that round thing that's not like a true intersection, it's a round.
It's a roundabout.
I usually say roundabout. Out here, they say traffic circle. They've got that listed, but I'm like, it's roundabout. Some say
Roundabout.
rotary. I'm like, that's a phone.
Yep.
And then the other thing that is very puzzling to me, because I have no word for it, is like in cities. You're downtown and they've got those little things in between the different lanes where they put flowers. It's like
Boulevard.
sidewalks and flowers. And there I have no word for it.
Meridian. We call them meridians.
Oh no, a meridian would
Sorry,
be
median.
like would
Median.
be a
Median.
wall. Would be
Median.
a wall
Okay.
between two sets, but like when they put trees in it, some people call like I took that test from the New York Times to guess your accent where you're from, and they're calling it like traffic islands. I'm like, that's appropriate.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, but like I got no word for it. If I saw it, I'm just like, it's the crap in the middle of the road that separates the lanes.
In British Columbia, we call it a median.
Yeah, a median is just usually when you hear that, there might be like a little concrete, those little concrete block things that they put.
Or if
The,
it's on
the traffic, yeah.
if
Yeah.
it's the trees on the sidewalk area, between the road and the sidewalk,
Oh yeah, I have
a
no word for that either.
boulevard.
No, a boulevard's a road,
Okay.
a big
Not up
road.
here.
Usually it's a
That
wide.
trucks can't drive on.
Yeah, it's almost like a county highway, but in a city. It's a boulevard but I wouldn't call. I guess it may be berm, like that strip of grass between the sidewalk and the road. I guess you could call it a berm.
We call it greenway.
I've got a berm at my house. Merle, you've been to my house. You know the front by the fence?
Yep.
Where we have all the plants, that's a berm. But I would never use that to describe the area between a sidewalk and parking strip. Oh,
Could you call it an easement?
what?
An easement? Would that work or no?
No,
Is
that doesn't ring a bell for me at all.
Oh,
Oh, and then
really? Okay.
the other thing is, what is this thing about like drive-through liquor stores?
We used to have them.
Drive-through liquor stores. Apparently, it's a thing in like Oklahoma and Texas. I'm like, just wait, you're not allowed to drive with booze in the car, but you have drive-through
Open
liquor
container.
stores. Oh, okay.
We have
I
drive-through
think they're a
pharmacies.
thing of the past.
And they're still around apparently. And then for me, October 30th has a name.
Halloween.
No, Devil's Night. You have Halloween on the 31st, but on the 30th, it's Devil's Night.
Okay.
Is that one of them here, or is that
No,
on your
it's
end?
Derby.
Jake?
Dolly. Oh, Derby.
It's
No, it's Derby, or as I like to say, the Yum Bitch Puppy. I still love you.
We got shaman and shaman.
Yeah, I think that's kind of, what do we call it?
Regional.
Regional.
Regional
Let's see, what's
dialect.
another one that's,
Patois.
yeah. Oh, of course, being from Wisconsin, I call drinking fountains, they're bubblers. I would call it
Okay.
a bubbler. Yeah.
Interesting.
Anyway, kids, well, that's the show.
That's the show.
It was gruesome tonight. We don't usually do true crime,
Not usually, no, but
but it was a nice
it
gory
was off the
topic.
beaten path. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good one.
Yeah.
All right.
So, I guess
Yep,
that's
so-
it, kids. I guess that's it.
I don't know if we'll do a show next week or not. We come up with something fabulous or no,
It'll have to be fun.
or take a break. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
The
I
old
think.
TBA.
I think we're in break mode.
I think so too.
but we might come back for something fun.
Okay.
Yep. It's not goodbye, but it's a pause.
It's a pause. We're taking a pause, folks.
Taking a pause.
Taking a pause. We might do some podcast. We might do a podcast here or there.
Yep.
We might.
We
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Cool.
I guess with that, kids.
Yeah. With that, thank you all for listening.
Thank you for
We
listening.
appreciate you very much. All 4 or 5 of you. It's just awesome.
Okay, gang. Well,
Yep.
let's just
We'll see ya.
Let's just stay on the line a little bit after I hang up the broadcast.
Sounds good.
Okie dokie.
We'll see you
Okay.
all soon.
Mwah. Thank you for tuning in on our gruesome night on Mystic Moon Cafe.
Gruesome.
Gruesome. Okay.